Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class today. You know, I was talking with Jason just as the broadcast started, and Jason's engineering the broadcast, and he does Monday through Friday, and it's wonderful, wonderful to work with him. And sometimes another engineer will jump in, and like Nathan and some of the others, and it's wonderful, Scott. And it's really great. It's really great to work with the engineers at GCN. And what I was telling Jason is that this broadcast is a team. It's a team of everybody involved. Okay, it's the engineer, me, and the instructors. It really is. And if we're all paying attention and we're all doing what we're supposed to do, we can call that our job. It works better than if we don't pay attention. And so I was telling him that I really appreciate what he does. And he mentioned to me that he gets paid for it. And I said, and I'm paraphrasing this whole monologue, that, yeah, I know that, but some people get paid and do a lousy job. And it's wonderful to see those who really pay attention and want to do a good job and are passionate about what they do and are proactive. So, that being said, I'd like to say publicly one more time, Jason, thank you so much. And I'm not doing this for any reason other than to say thank you. That's the whole reason. And every once in a while, I get a chance to talk to Ted Anderson, who owns Genesis Communications Network. And when I do, I thank him for what he does for USA Prepares. I thank him for the quality of the broadcast staff and engineering and signal and so forth. And I tell him that I really appreciate it. And so I haven't said it in the last few months, so I just said it. Ted, thank you very much. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Guineith, do you ever hear broadcasts that really aren't well organized, that aren't well prepared? Do you ever hear any of that? Because I have.
Yeah, I hear them from time to time, and I usually stay tuned in for like 5 minutes just to see if they get better, and if they don't, I tune out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't tend to keep listening to such broadcasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Class, Guineith Isaacs is live in Australia. She is probably the only foreign correspondent who appears regularly 2 hours a week on a broadcast in alternative radio. And I really appreciate you being with us, Guineith. I had a question for you. I was talking with Mrs. Finelli about this. She told me about a story. I have not read it. So let's just consider this a rumor right now because I have not read it yet. And it was just as the broadcast was starting. She said in the tiny state of Delaware, the Attorney General for the state of Delaware is going to prosecute people who took a Make America Great hat off a young person and threw it over the ledge or over the bridge or over the wall. I'm not sure what. And the Attorney General of the state of Delaware said that that's not what we're about here in America. We don't do that kind of thing. And I was thinking about that. Maybe somebody could tell me exactly what's wrong with a hat that says Make America Great or a shirt that says Make America Great. It doesn't say make white people great. It doesn't say make black people great or yellow or red or brown. It doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't say let's make mixed race great again. It doesn't say anything like that. There's no hate involved in any way, shape, or form. And I don't understand what is wrong with wearing a Make America Great Again hat, MAGA. Now, in that line of thinking, I learned many decades ago that there is assault and battery. And in police vernacular back then, it was called A and B, assault and battery. And I learned that assault, someone would be assaulted and battered if the perpetrator said, I'm going to beat you up, and then beat the person up. So the assault would be, I'm going to beat you up. The battery would be the act of beating him up. So one is verbal. That would be the assault. I'm going to beat you up kind of a thing. That saying that would be a threat. That's the assault. And then the actual hitting would be the battery. Now, what happens lately is that has become twisted. And I haven't looked up the latest definition on the internet to see how twisted it might have become. But when a person is beat up by the police, they say that's an assault. That's a battery. When someone is bludgeoned by the police, that's battery. Now, they might have been told, some words like, with a lot of profanity, like get on the ground or I'm going to, knock you out. That would be the assault. Then jumping on them with 6 guys, that would be the battery. But what seems to happen is the police, if they ever get a charge with an assault, not the battery. Gwyneth, did you learn what I learned? Did you learn it the way I did over in Australia? We've never talked about this. Do you have those definitions in your mind of what assault and battery used to be? Assault being the verbal and battery being the physical?
Here in Australia, I don't think that the Crimes Act here is framed in quite that way that it is in America. I don't know what the American definition is. But here, assault has to involve physical contact, okay? And that can be poking someone. That can be an assault, okay? If that person does not want to be poked, okay, with the tip of one finger, that counts as an assault. But we have another set of laws, which is issuing threats, okay? And if you threaten to harm someone here in Australia, that is a criminal offence. And, yeah, so that would be what you would be defining as the assault. Here in Australia, that would be defined as issuing a threat to harm. Okay, so if, for example, somebody said, well, I'm gonna burn your house down or whatever, I'm not saying that. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't be that stupid. But if somebody said that, then that would count as a threat to harm, and you could get arrested for that, and you could spend probably 5 years in jail just for issuing that sort of threat to harm for each instance. So if you repeated the threat multiple times, then for each instance that you're looking at about a 5-year prison sentence for each instance. Okay, and it kind of does confuse me because I'm thinking that if somebody has annoyed somebody else to that extent that they are issuing those sorts of statements, I don't think that putting that person into a jail cell for 5 years is going to improve their temper. That's just me. That's just, my opinion. But I think that person is going to sit there and stew for 5 years. And personally, I don't think that it would go well for that person to have the threats issued against them when that person got out after 5 years, because they would be sitting in a jail cell thinking about what they had did and what they had said and why they were there for 5 years. Does that make sense, Vincent? I mean, that's just my opinion. From, hanging around underworld types for rather a long time in my life, being married to a Well, he called himself a reformed gangster, but he still had a lot of friends who were gangsters.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's what I just looked it up. And assault versus battery, and it's confusing. And I understand now why I'm confused, because it's both. So, for example, a simple assault occurs when it's committed without a weapon, and the injuries were minor, and no serious harm was caused to the victim. Okay? And that could be just oral. But then, if you go to battery, a simple battery is the unauthorized act of contact or using physical force to cause harm. That can be touching or physical injury. And then there are different levels of battery. There's simple battery, there's aggravated battery, there's medical battery, and with assaults, there's a simple assault, there's a physical assault, there's a sexual assault, there's aggravated assault, there's a verbal assault. And it says that not all assault has to be physical. Verbal assault is the act of orally communicating with someone in order to cause emotional, mental, or physical injury to someone. So it's all confusing. And it's probably done that way so that the average person who is charged with a crime won't be able to figure out what in the heck's going on because it's so confusing. I think that's kind of like the IRS tax code. It's so confusing that most people just throw up their hands and say, I got to hire somebody because I'm not smart enough to figure this out. So I just wanted to mention that. And why am I mentioning that? Because we talked about newspeak, doublespeak. We talked about how confusing the language is, how words are changing. Well, those words changed in my lifetime. I'm here to say that it's not the way I was taught. It's not the way I learned it. So 50, 60 years later, it's now different. So in terms of this Make America Great Again hat, I see nothing wrong with wearing it. If Barry Soetoro wore a Make America Great hat, I'd say, wow, that's great. That's great. He wants to actually fix some of the damage that he and his buddies inflicted. And there's some comments making the news about Jumpin' Joe, the plagiarist, having lost some of his mental capacity. But yet there are about half of Americans, 48%, seem to think that he would be the guy. And the other 48%, the other half roughly, think that President Donald Trump is the guy. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to have someone in the White House that is not it's not a person who is losing faculty. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? But then again, I don't know very many young people who are trustworthy. Their morals are not the same as some of the older people. And I'm not saying that Jumpin' Joe or President Donald Trump have this, ideal morals, because I don't think they do. It's just a mess. Gwyneth, you wanted to talk about the Three Gorges Dam, is that right?
Yeah, I would like to talk about that. But just before I do, I want to mention something, okay, just before the break. Medical battery, would that possibly involve coercing somebody to be injected with a poison or a deadly virus or cancer cells?
Yeah.
Or
great thought. Great thought. Hold that thought. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. And Guineith, you mentioned medical battery. And so here's a definition. If a medical professional fails to obtain consent from a patient to perform a task, then they have committed battery. This could be through touching the patient or handling the patient's body without consent. This act could be used in medical malpractice lawsuit for negligence. So, it sounds to me like injecting a person without their permission is an example of medical battery. So if the state were to force you to do this, to take a vaccine without your consent, that sounds to me like medical battery. Gwyneth, we have David in Illinois on the line, and he'd like to talk about the police. Did you have a comment about medical battery before we bring David on?
Yeah, that also includes sticking a 4-inch long Q-tip up someone's nose and saying that they can't continue to travel along the road or they can't have a job unless that 4-inch long Q-tip gets shoved up their nose.
Yes, and that has happened. That has happened here in the United States. I'm not sure about Australia, but they have these police
all over the place here.
They call them
roadblocks. They're holding people up in Melbourne, and they're not letting them proceed unless they get that Q-tip up their nose. Mm-hmm. And that's medical battery.
Yes, it sure sounds like it. Based on the definition in the United States. I'm glad you used the word roadblock because some people have referred to these police cars blocking the road as checkpoints. They're not checkpoints. They are roadblocks. They are gauntlets that if they decide to let you continue on your way, they may do that. But if they don't, they're going to hold you up. And there are plenty of them doing it. So it's not just one guy or one gal saying, would you mind pulling over? I just want to take your temperature. Would it be okay with you if I just detain you for a little bit? I just want to check things out. And here's why. They don't tell you why. They just force you to do it. David in Illinois, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? I can comment on a lot of these other issues that you brought up afterwards as well, but the whole thing about the police situation, the other thing that gets me about the police situation is the way they use it. If we do something to take action against them or the government, we are classified as disgruntled. Now, if they could do what they want to us accidentally, or they just say, I fear for our lives, or we just want to go home at night, that's okay. But if we do something to protect ourselves or defend ourselves, we're now disgruntled. They classify us as disgruntled.
They classify me as hostile.
That too, yeah.
When they show up to my gate, that is the word that they have used themselves. The Victoria Police, I've seen it in their police documents and their sworn affidavits about incidents that where the blue team come up to my place and trespass on my property. They use the word hostile in their affidavit documents of evidence, of what happened on that day. And, something, I think that it's getting to the point where if people continued behaving in that manner towards not just me, but towards other people, if they continue to do this, because they're not just doing it, they haven't done that to me in a while, actually. So I don't think they want to, because I think that they are going for the people that they think will fold. And I think that they might have assessed that I'm not going to fold. But they are doing it to other people, and I can't speak for what other people are going to do, but I think that some of these other people are going to start being a lot more hostile than I would have been when they show up at their doors and bust through their doors and show up in the middle of the night saying that they're just doing a curfew check or whatever. I'm not, I'm not threatening anyone or planning anything or anything like that. We've got to offer our regular disclaimer, but I'm saying this is just me knowing human psychology of how things are unfolding and how people tend to respond when this sort of thing goes down.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Guineith was explaining our disclaimer. And the three of us right now, we are not advocates of violence. We are just sharing what we've learned with our 160 years or so of combined experience. The experience that we've had with people in the study of psychology and human interaction. So what we're just doing is we are drawing conclusions that seem reasonable to us as to the outcome of some of these horrific events. We're not saying the outcomes are reasonable. We're just saying that it stands to reason that one might derive the same outcomes that we derive based on the facts as we know them, based on the situations as we understand them. Like when someone does something to someone, harms someone, unprovoked, it seems to reason that the person who was harmed will be furious and will be angry and might want to pursue the aggressor in the legal system, or might even take action him or herself. We're not saying that you should do that. We're just saying that it happens over and over and over and over again, and if you don't see it, you're a fool. It's right in front of us. It's kind of like when the police say to a group of people who are protesting, y'all get out of here. And the people say, no, we have a right to protest and make our views known and express our grievances. And then the police are ordered by the mayor, get those guys out of here. So the police escalate and they start firing tear gas. And someone gets hit in the face with tear gas canisters, tear gas, and these people are injured because the mayor said, get them out of here. So then the people say, what? Are you kidding me? We have a right to do this. We haven't broken anything. So the police have ratcheted up the violence. They have caused violence when there was none. And then the people come back, they're furious because some guy's got a broken jaw, broken skull, eye knocked out. People are choking with tear gas. All of these chemical weapons, all of these weapons were built at the money of the hard work of the taxpayers. That's where it came from. So people are frosted that the governments, if you will, the government corporations are doing this to them, escalating weapons of war, armored vehicles, machine guns, etc. They've had it. So these are just natural conclusions. And what I did was I estimated David's age, Guineith's age, and my age. Actually, I know my age. And I said 160 years. That's what I see. Guineith, your comments.
Yeah, I would say you've summed it up in a nutshell. The police have a really vital flaw in their reasoning. They think that if they behave in a thuggish manner towards the people, that the people up until now have more or less bowed to what the police want. And the police think that that is because they have the threat of physical violence that they can wield, okay? But that's not why people have generally done what they've been told by the police over the years. The people have generally done what they've been told by the police over the years, not because of the threat of physical violence, but because they have actually respected the police up until very recently. And there's only been an absolute minority of people who have seen through them and who have seen them for what they are. People such as myself, such as David, such as you, and we have been screaming from the rooftops till we're blue in the face of exactly what these people are like, and nobody's believed us. And now they are uncloaking and showing themselves for who they are. I'm not going to call them the blue team around here anymore. I'm calling them the black team because they've changed the colour of their uniforms in Victoria, Vincent. I don't know if you've noticed that on the film clips that are going out there to the world. They're now wearing black uniforms, and that ain't a good thing. That is a very, very bad sign when police forces start to wear either red or black uniforms. And the Victoria Police is wearing red and black uniforms in addition to their fluorescent green and blue uniforms that they have been wearing as well. This is it.
When I was a child, and I'm talking like in the 1950s, when I started the public training camp, I remember us walking to the police station, the whole class. We walked to the police station, and we were told by our teacher, this man in the blue uniform, if you're ever in trouble, he is the one you go see. Okay? They're all over the place, and if you're in trouble, you're in danger, you just go and find a policeman, and they will help you. Today, if I had an automobile emergency, let's say I had a failure, and I saw up ahead there was a police car, I would do one of two things. I'd pull over way before I got there, or I'd get past it and pull into somebody's driveway or some parking lot or something like that, and I would not ask for help. I would not ask for help. David, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, a couple comments on a lot of this stuff. Now, real quick, Guineith brought up about hostile. That I'm glad she mentioned that, because you can have these cops destroying your property right in front of your face. You get upset, which is a natural psychological emotion, but you're becoming hostile towards them. Now you're a threat to them. Why are you being so hostile to me? What do you have to hide? Well, you kick my door and you're punching holes in my walls. You know, you got us all strapped down on the floor. We don't even know why. But she's right. It used to be where they just targeted certain individuals, and now they're targeting almost everybody. They've gotten out of control. Now, you talk about serious, hot, bad crimes. You probably remember this. You may. I assume you would. Remember in New York, the police in New York, 4 of them went and took a guy, a black individual. He was in the bathroom, and they molested him with a broom handle or a mop handle.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I remember that.
My dad was furious about that. I had to sit on the phone with him for hours when he was in his car, supposed to be working, because the officers were not smart enough to take him off site to punish him. And the other officers were not smart enough to cover for the guy when it did get out of control, the other 4 cops. Not the fact that they did it. The fact that they should have took him to the woods. That's what to do. You know, and you're listening to this as a young person. And like you said, back then in the days, they wore light blue shirts for regular cops. Upper officers wore white shirts. And you knew who they were, and you were told to go to them. But you're right. It's all going to tactical stuff. It's all going to black, dark colors, you know, the whole get up. But you do not, they do not like for you to question them at all.
I was at Sam's Club pumping gas one day, years ago. And this police car pulled up opposite side of the same pump. And it was brand new. And it was a black police car with very, very dark gray lettering. So, you know, it said police on it, but it was in dark gray. So it was dark gray on black. It wasn't like a black and white, you know, the old police car of the Andy Griffith era that you could, you know, spot a mile away. It wasn't like that. And so I said to the guy, you know, I just put the pump on automatic, and I walked over and I said, wow, this is something. He goes, oh, yeah, we just got this. We just picked this up in Springfield, Missouri, and it's called the Blackout Edition. They have a special police car. And if you look at Ford, you can look up Ford police cars. They're special. They make a special police car for the police. It's not the same thing as you would buy. It's got a bigger engine. It's got stiffer suspension. It's lower. It's got better brakes. It has an X-shaped frame. It's got a spare tire so that if they're rammed in the back, they can survive a rear-end collision better than your car could. Because now cars hardly have spare tires. So what they've done is they've improved the engine, improved the cooling system of the engine. They've improved the seats. They have better seats with more support for the police officers than we get. So there's another class of people. Those police cars, the reason they're so expensive, they're special. And then if you order one of those, you can get it really jazzed up with a Blackout Edition paint job, which you can't see because it's black on or dark gray on black. And it's supposed to be so you can't see it. And where do they put these intense lights, these white and red and blue lights? Well, it used to be that there'd be they used to call them gumball machines on the roof of the car. They'd screw on a gumball machine with a rotating red light on top of the roof, in the center of the roof of a standard Dodge, Chrysler, Chevrolet, or Ford. Nope. Now Ford makes the lights built in so you can't see them. So if you're looking at the profile of a police car, it looks like the profile of another car, any other car. They're designed to be stealth. I object to that. I think if we're paying for it, we ought to be able to see it plain without it being concealed or camouflaged. But now they are. They're being built from the factory, camouflaged. So if you want to put your money into a brand new car, I suggest you don't do that. But if you are going to do that, do you want to buy a car that is made to be hidden from public view by Ford Motor Company?
Can I ask you an opinion about something about that?
Sure.
Your opinion?
Sure.
Okay. Now this is I agree. Yes, they went to more stealth to hide their vehicles. Plus, it's also a lot more aerodynamic and things of that nature. But there's a lot of other reasons. But the other thing is, here they're telling us not to stay. In a sense, they're helping cause disgrunt amongst people in the worry when you're out in public. Say you're out in the country. You got a car you cannot identify as a police vehicle, and yet they're wanting you to pull over in the middle of nowhere. And then they tell you, oh, gosh, we got people turning up missing. Women are getting raped and molested and killed. So we want you to drive to the next nearest location if this happens to you out in the country. So you do that. Now you're getting shot at. Now, if they would have not had that type of vehicle or had sent in a vehicle that is clearly marked to deal with that individual, those things may not happen. It's almost like they're intentionally causing that worry, that fear between the criminal and the police. You don't know which one's coming at you. Either way, they both benefit, except for the individual behind that innocent car.
You're absolutely right.
I'd like to make a comment related
Let's do that
to that when we come back. The break.
Yeah, when we come back. David, excellent point. Guineith is with us live in Australia. David is with us in Illinois. We're talking about unmarked police cars and how darn dangerous they are. Guineith, you had a comment?
Okay, what I'm about to say, I want for everybody to be really careful with how they interpret it, because I want this to be taken in the spirit which it was intended. It's not a threat, but it is a warning, okay? Victoria Police have been going around to people's places in the middle of the night just to check if they're there, okay? I know that the Victoria Police around here really don't like me, okay? And I'm a widow. I live with my son on an isolated homestead, basically out in the middle of nowhere. If I see lights coming up my driveway in the middle of the night, or even sitting at my gate in the middle of the night, I am going to assume that it's criminals out to do me harm in the atmosphere that is in this state at the moment. And I'm going to go down my driveway, and I have an axe, which I'm good at wielding, and I have Lucille to keep me company, and I have certain non-firearm projectile firing devices, and I'm not going to look to see if it's a police car. I'm going to assume that it's criminals intent on doing me harm. Because another thing that I know is that the police down the road are rapists. And I don't care anymore if they come to my place in the middle of the night thinking that they can do me harm or just give me a bad time, I don't care at this point. I am going to defend myself, and I'm going to defend my land, and I'm going to defend my son. And it really doesn't even matter if they kill me at this stage. I am going to defend myself with every ounce of my being. I am not out to threaten anybody else.
Gwyneth, I think what I'm hearing.
I am out to defend my farm and my life and my son and my property. I know what these bastards do. So I'm very sorry for saying that, Vincent. I'm so sorry. I'm so upset. Please forgive me. I'm so upset with these people down the road. They have tried to harm me so many times.
Gwyneth, hold that thought for just a second. I believe what I'm hearing you say is that because they have exhibited the behavior of being sneaky, I'm talking about the police, because they hide with their radar guns. And I'm just talking about examples in the United States. They hide in parking lots. They hide at night. They hide just over the hill. They park their car so you can't see the hood of their car or the roof of their car. And they stand with their radar gun crouched down so you can't see them right next to the guardrail, and they snipe with their radar gun. Then that's just one little iota of what they do. They also have these dark uniforms so you can't really see them as well at night. Then they have night vision. Then they have all kinds of weapons and radios, communication devices. And they bash in people's doors without warning. You know, if they want to know, they could place a phone call. They've got our phone numbers. They know where we are. They can locate us with location devices. But they bash the doors down. They sneak. They snipe. They beat us up. And they even remove their insignia so we don't even know who they are. And yet, we're supposed to jump when they say jump. And I've had this discussion with many people. And actually, it's a question. What will you do if you're asleep and you hear the front door being bashed down? What are you going to do? Are you going to assume that's a friendly, checkup on you? Or are you going to assume that you're being invaded and you're going to die? Are you going to start shooting? Or are you going to run? Or what are you going to do? And so the reason that there's rioting, I believe, in the United States and worldwide is not because of just Black Lives Matter. It's because of the oppression. It's because of what I just described. It's because we don't know who to trust. Because the people that we used to trust have violated our trust. The police plant evidence. The police snipe and hide. Not all of them, but enough of them that they've tarnished the names of all of them. We said that if the police aren't careful, we said this years ago, if they're not careful, all police will be treated the same by the villagers, because the villagers won't know who's good and who's not. So they're going to treat them all as if they are not trustworthy. And that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. In the cities, it's dangerous to be a policeman. Why? Because of their behavior. And where do they get that from? From the mayor and the governor. That's where they get it from. They get it from the top. We'll be right back. And we'll talk more about this. But I have a question for David. David, when we come back, who pays for the front door? So the police bash down the front door. Do you get to buy a new front door for yourself? I know our front door was like $1,300 without installation. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith is with us live in Australia. David called in from Illinois. And I had a question. We're talking about some of the tactics that the police use. And specifically, when they bash down the front door, who pays for the door? Let me tell you, I just looked up what it costs to replace a front door. Well, if you have, this would be, not a front door, just an average exterior door, okay? So if you have a steel door, no glass in it, the low-end price is $420 to replace one. That doesn't mean put in one that's a different size, different shape. That means take one that's just like it and take the old one out and put the new one in. At the higher end of the spectrum, it's $1,688. So between $400 and $1,700, roughly. I looked up what it would cost to replace our front door. Now, we don't have an attic. Okay, our house is designed with the ceiling is the roof. So if you go into any room and you look up, there's no attic above. So if you have an 8-foot ceiling, we don't have that. Our ceiling is the roof. Okay, it's sheetrocked, but it's the roof. So if you had a typical house that had an 8-foot first floor, let's say it's a ranch house, and you didn't have an attic above that, and you could stand in the attic, that's another 8 feet. So it'd be 16 feet up in the air. Well, that's kind of what we have. So we don't have an attic, and because of that, these tall ceilings require a door that is commensurate with that size or that height of the ceiling. So our front door is a double front door, and it's 8 feet tall. A standard door is about 7 feet tall. So it was a little more expensive. And I looked up what it would cost now to have a double 8-foot door installed. I can't believe it. It's $3,500, which is absolutely insane. Now, our son and I installed ours, and it probably took us, half a day to do it. So we never installed a door like that before. It was a little complicated, but $3,500. So now the question is, David, if someone bashes in a front door that costs between $400 and, well, actually the range is $400 to maybe $7,000 for a front door, who pays for that? Do the police write you a check and say, yeah, we're just checking and make sure everybody's okay, and you guys didn't answer when we whispered at the door, police? Who pays for that?
No. First thing, if they breach the dwelling, they're not going to just breach the door. You're going to wind up having holes up and down the walls. They're going to destroy the internal structure of that facility that they go into. So, meaning your home. And if they don't find nothing, it's happened many times, they go to the wrong address. They don't care. They get the training out of it. That's it. Now, they go and they find out, oops, we made a mistake. Well, let's say, how do we get out of this? We found a seed somewhere on the property. Anything, something trivial like that. Now what do you got? You're going to be climbing an uphill battle to try to get anything paid for. Anything. And if you're lucky enough to, it's coming out of your tax dollars, not their budget. And they laugh about it. It's hilarious to them. It is hilarious to them. And it just amazes me. But I want to say something really serious. You brought up something a minute ago. You said, what do we do if they breach your door? What are you willing to do? Now, I've been living under that threat most of my life. And when my father said, what are you going to do? If you don't shut your mouth, we're going to come in there, and it'll be a no-knock. And I started arming myself, and they gave me training. They gave me training with this stuff ever since I was a kid. I didn't ask for their training on weapons and how to plan and how to take out buildings. I didn't ask for that. They gave it to me. They did, okay? But since they know I had what they showed me, he said, what's going to happen? I know you're going to take me down. Some of you will take me down. But that's the last 4 walls that I have to protect myself. He said, okay, you're with her. What do you think we're going to do to her? We can't leave her and just let her be. We're going to make it look like somebody else did it, or that you guys are involved in something. So I had to have this serious conversation with her what to do in that situation. And she said, just don't let them do to me what they showed you in them photographs. And I had to promise her something, that I will take that action if necessary. And that's
David,
how life is here.
You're talking about your wife, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. So I think those who are paying attention in class are wondering, should they have that conversation with their family? What are your thoughts, David?
Definitely. Because if they come in, they will come in guns a-blaring. They don't care if it's going to be the wrong. If they want to get into that house, especially if you have something they really want bad, they're going to find a reason. You can look, I can give you all kinds of cases where they wanted something bad off somebody, and they're going to find a way to get it. Whether it be to find a way to swindle the property they won't sell. It's been happening. It happens all the time.
David, have you heard of evidence gone missing in police evidence rooms? I mean, nice things, things that people might want to have. Have you heard of that?
Here's one even more surprising to you. It was more shocking to me when I found out about this at a younger age. I thought, at least for themselves, they covered themselves 100%. They would steal from each other, even guns that they wanted, that the other guy confiscated or had from here or there. They would steal it from themselves, from each other. And you're like, my gosh, what? I mean, they had guns. I've seen drop guns. Drop phones. They know what criminals use. They carry several of them.
David?
And you're like, oh, sorry.
David, okay. There's a absolutely magnificent piece of art. It is also a handgun. It was made by a company named High Standard. And they made this magnificent target pistol in .22 long rifle, and it was called the Citation. Absolutely magnificent in every respect. It's a great shooting pistol. It's a semi-automatic pistol. It was really accurate, and it's highly prized. Do you know what I'm talking about? A high standard Citation?
I know High Standard. Yeah, I know High Standard.
Okay. Well, this thing had a fluted barrel. Okay. This is a really magnificent piece of art. And I'm just wondering if one of those ended up in the evidence room, for example, what do you think the likelihood of that staying in the evidence room for a couple of years would be?
I'd be surprised if it stayed in there very long. 99.97% chance it'll be out of that evidence room within a week, if that. Even if it made it to the evidence room, most of the time, they don't even get a chance to get off their shifts and get out of their vehicles before they're getting rid of the guns that they confiscated off the streets from people, legal, law-abiding citizens, mind you. Okay, and I've seen this in front of my face, and like, wait a minute, those guns are in a case. That's the legal way to transport the firearm. You're supposed to not shut up, just stand there, and you're like, I don't understand. You see asking those questions all my life by observing these, what they do, it just shocks. You have to ask those questions because you're confused. And that's a confusion. You don't want to be around those people because it causes violence. It causes me to lose body parts. And
let me share something with our class. Class, you may not believe this, but this is absolutely true. One of my family was driving, and it could have been me, so I'm not going to identify who it was. But one of us was driving an antique vehicle. And there was some road construction. And what they did was they cut the road. Literally, they have a machine that grinds off like 3 inches of the road. So they take the old road, and at some point they draw a line across the road, and they cut into the road, and then there's a drop down where they grind off 3 inches because they're going to put new road on top. But they want it to be the same height, so they grind off part of the old road. So that left a step with a really sharp edge. And one of my family was driving around as it was getting dark, and they were going around a curve at a 55-mile-an-hour area, and right at the point where this drop-off was, this sharp ledge, no sign at all, because they just finished working on it that day, and they all went home. And it bent two antique wheels on our vehicle, and it damaged 2 tires. It broke the steel belts. So now the tires are out of round and the wheels are bent. So I got on the internet and I looked up the area where this happened, and I called up the city because it's within the city, or I thought it was within the city limits, but I wasn't exactly sure, but it's certainly within the county. So I called up the city and I said, I identified myself, and I said, I just want to make sure that I send the bill to the right people. And this gal said, okay, you want to talk to the state highway department. They're in charge of that. Yeah, we know all about it. Yep. And so I talked to them, and they transferred me to a special department. And that department is called risk management. Risk management.
Oh, boy.
Well, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. See,
I know.
They know. They know that they.
We're all laughing because we know what the risk management is.
Yeah, that's where people die. That's where people die, and they go, "Uh-oh, how are we going to lower this payout?" That's what risk management is all about.
That's right.
Okay. Well, they are going to pay for 2 wheels. They're going to pay for 2 tires and the labor to change them. That's what they're going to pay for, and they know it. And so I just, I was real polite, and I said, I just want to make sure I send the bill to the right people. I didn't say, what are you going to do about it? I said, I'm going to bill you guys. Now, if they don't pay for it, I'm going to take it out of any taxes that they may think that I owe. They're not getting away with this. They've caused well over $1,000 worth of damage because of their carelessness and recklessness. What I'm telling you, class, is you don't have to take the beating that you are being given. If you run into a pothole that's been there more than, a day or so, that is negligence. For example, if you slip on a banana on the sidewalk, and you end up going into court because you hurt your back or you broke your leg, the attorney will say, well, what color was the banana? And if you say, well, it was yellow, they say, well, it was just dropped there, so we can't be responsible because it was just dropped there. But if you say it was brown, that means it has been oxidized and has been there so long that someone should have picked it up. But they didn't, and now they are involved in a negligence action. Okay? Because they didn't pick it up. So there was no sign. There was no sign that said, this road is defective and you're going to destroy your car. Okay. So we've talked about the front door. When we get back to Gwyneth's comments.
We need to stop showing the police so much respect because they don't deserve it. They're corrupt. They're the biggest bunch of criminals you've ever seen. They're endangering all of our lives. They're endangering all of our properties, all of our families. They're dragging children out of mothers' arms and giving them to pedophiles. We need to stop respecting these people. Okay? We need to look after ourselves. I get so fed up when I hear on certain radio shows, not USA Prepares, but certain other radio shows, that we need the police. We do not need the police. Okay? If everybody out there had the same attitude in their life that I have and that David has and that you have, there wouldn't be a crime problem because they would know that if they that the criminals would know that if they go, doing a home invasion on a certain isolated farmhouse, that even if there's strict firearms laws, that there could very well be somebody on the other side of that door with an axe, a hatchet, a kitchen knife, a piece of rope to wrap around the guy's neck, whatever. And that home invasion would end up going very badly for that group of criminals. And that is even true if it's a woman living on her own in the house. Women who live on their own should be the most dangerous people to home invaders. Okay? Every woman on her own should get it in her mind that if there is anybody who is going to come to your house in the middle of the night, that they are up to no good and that they need to be met with force. That you need to defend your life and you need to defend your property and you need to defend your children because you are the head of the household, and if you don't defend them, they are going to take you and they're probably going to kill you. And so you need to fight as if your life depends on it, because it does. And it doesn't matter at that point if that guy is wearing a badge and a uniform, or if he's wearing ladies' pantyhose on his head and a black sweater and black jeans. It doesn't matter, because probably the outcome's going to be the same. And there have been cases, incidentally, in the last few months, where drug dealers have been going around with police cars wearing police uniforms, raiding rival drug dealers' houses and smashing them up. And these are not police officers. They just have access somehow to police cars and police uniforms. Maybe they stole the police car 2 hours before. But just because it's a police car, even if it's got painted, with the checkerboard symbol with police and the lights and all the rest of it, and even if they're in police uniforms, there's no guarantee that that's actually a police officer. And even if it is a police officer, if they're anything like the police officers around here, they know better than the criminals anyway. So if they show up with violent force, they need to be met with violent force. You should not go out attacking them. You should absolutely not go out attacking them. But if they're attacking you, you need to defend yourself. And if that means that they arrest you and throw you in the can for 5 years, well, you should regard that as an opportunity to gain a university education and build a network, because that's going to be the rest of your life from that point on. Does that make sense, Vincent?
I know Randy Weaver, and they killed his wife. They shot. I'm talking about the government. Shot his dog, his child, his wife. It was it was a siege at Ruby Ridge. It was a movie.
Ruby Ridge.
Guineith is with us. David is with us. And I've just got a quick comment to make. And I know Guineith wanted to talk about the Three Gorges Dam and how serious that is. And also about the Harry and housebreaker or homebreaker wife of his, who almost is single-handedly destroying the monarchy. But what you've learned today in class is that the police and the mayor have violated our trust. Or the police and the mayors have violated our trust. And that if you question that violation of trust, you're termed disgruntled, as David said. And I agree. He's right. And that's true. We are disgruntled. And we're disgruntled because let me give you an example. Marshfield, Missouri. The Attorney General for the corrupt state of Missouri actually did the right thing, and he went after the city government of Marshfield, Missouri. It's 20 miles away from us. We've been through there many times. And they set up an operation for profit. They hired a cop, paid him $35,000, and his job was to bring back over $170,000 in extra revenue from a ticket quota. A ticket quota is an illegal thing. You can't have a quota for tickets. So imagine you're driving along and you're not speeding, and you get a ticket for speeding, and it's a 6-point ticket, which means that your insurance rate is going to go up for the next 3 years by 10%. So 10% for 3 years. So you're going to end up paying more for insurance because now you're a risk because, well, you've been caught speeding, allegedly, but you weren't. So you go to court and you say, Your Honor, I wasn't speeding. This is all fabricated. This is bogus. And the prosecutor and the judge talk, and they say, I'll tell you what, $200 for a loud muffler and court costs, and you won't get any points. Is that satisfactory? And what are you going to do? You going to say, no, give me the 6 points and the higher insurance costs? Or are you going to pay him the $200? Just about everybody pays him the $200 because they've got us by the throat. And because they've got us by the throat and because they pull stunts like this, they've violated our trust. And they label us as disgruntled, which is why we're seeing the riots all over. Because it's not just Marshfield, Missouri. It's all over. It's in California. It's in Arizona. It's everywhere. So I just wanted to share with you, that's what's happening. And as I said before, we're not getting out of this. This is not going to be fixed. And just one other comment. There was a television series that I used to kind of make fun of. Mrs. Finelli kind of liked it years ago. And the television series was called Walker, Texas Ranger. And when she would put that DVD in, I'd say, oh, you're watching the 3-word man. The 3-word man. And I would say, if they say, why do you call him the 3-word man? And I'd say, well, I think that he was in so many karate tournaments that he's been hit in the head so many times that Chuck Norris, who played Walker, couldn't remember his lines. So he would have 3-word lines. And the lines were like, yep, get 'em, uh-huh, them. And those were his lines. Well, if we're not careful, we're going to have a 3-word president, Joe Biden, because he can't remember his lines. And I'm not kidding. We will be the laughing stock of the universe. Joe Biden, he can't remember his lines. Joe Biden, for almost 50 years, he has been the problem. And he's the guy who's going to fix it, right? We're in so much trouble. And 48% of Americans think that he's their guy. So that tells you right off the bat that 48% of Americans are as dumb as a box of rocks. Gwyneth, any comments?
Yeah, I think that you and America are headed straight for a civil war, and I think it's all going to kick off just after the November elections.
Well, we're in the civil war. I believe we're in it already. You take 40...
yeah, you are. But what I mean is officially. And, I think that here in Victoria, like I said, I'm not advocating anything, but I can't see any way out of this for Victoria, what we are going through here, other than people starting to stand up for themselves. And I'm going to leave everybody just to fill in the blanks there. But it's going to involve standing up against the Victoria police when they come to your house at 10 p.m. at night and just decide that they want to wander through. You have got to stand up against them. Otherwise, we are heading into the most unbelievable tyranny that you can possibly imagine, that will make North Korea look like a walk in the park, that will make Nazi Germany look like a walk in the park, okay? Because what we are facing here in Victoria is worse than North Korea and worse than Nazi Germany. That is what we are headed into. And we will not be free here in the state of Victoria until I can put an ad in the newspaper or on the internet and sell a litter of puppies, and until I can drive my farm utility vehicle down the road without plates and without seatbelts. Until I can do that, we are not free, because that is even part of it. I'm not advising that anybody drive without registration and without seatbelts, but I think that people ought to have the choice to, if they want to, because there's an argument that seatbelts can be a liability, that people have been trapped in their vehicles by the seatbelt and have died. That has actually happened.
You mentioned Nazi Germany. You mentioned Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
In Nazi Germany, I'm sure you all can conjure up the image of the stormtroopers coming up to the second or third floor of a housing unit in the city. And they're going to round up the people that they want to arrest and put in concentration camps. So 6 guys march up the steps, boom, 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 in the middle of the night. And you have to wonder, how come the people saw this coming, block after block after block, getting closer and closer and closer, and they didn't set up tripwires on those steps? And they didn't set up a method whereby as the stormtroopers came around the steps, the top of the steps to turn, they didn't get harpooned and didn't have a pitchfork in the chest. And then you push the first one down and the other 5 go down and tumble on top of each other because of the tripwire. And you'd think that, if that happened enough times, the stormtroopers would say, this is really getting dangerous. We don't want to do this anymore. But nobody did that. They just said, yes, sir. How high? Where do you want me to go? Be glad to. If that's okay with you, thank you very much. And that's what happened. Because people didn't stand up. So a few stormtroopers cleaned out blocks of people. The stormtroopers were outnumbered, and yet they pulled it off because they were using, stealth maneuvers, kind of like what's happening here in the United States and around the world. It's unacceptable. There's no reason why the police can't say, hey, we're the police, and we'd like to talk to you. There's no reason why they need to bash doors down. None. There's no reason for the police to have 130-mile-an-hour pursuits. There's no reason for the police to go speeding down the highway when there's no call for an emergency. They do it because they can do it, and they can get away with it. And if you ask them, how come you speed? Well, it's because we can. Guineith, Three Gorges Dam. Can you please tell us how serious this is right now?
Yeah, the Three Gorges Dam is getting really, really serious. I sent you an email earlier. If you want to go, there's a guy called, and his name is called James Neil Cooper. He has a YouTube channel. You can go on his YouTube channel and see the photos that he has. There's bubbles coming out the bottom of the Three Gorges Dam. And what that means is that there is pressure, okay? There's water coming out at high pressure, not from the spigots that it's supposed to come out, from underneath the water, okay? And there's also plumes of sediment coming out of the top of the dam. So where the water would go into the pipe to head downhill, there's plumes of sediment coming out in that direction, and there's water jetting out downstream from underneath the dam, from a leak that's under the water. Now, what that means is that there is a crack in the dam, and the water is getting sucked into a hole underneath the waterline, probably a long way underneath the waterline at the Three Gorges Dam, and is filling up the earthen interior of the dam. This is an earth-filled dam, okay? You can go and watch the photos of it getting built. It's filled with earth. And the crack is formed in the base of the dam somewhere. It's sucking the water in, and it's spitting it out at high pressure out the other side, and forming this jet, which is clearly visible in the satellite photos that have emerged in the last day or two. Now, what that means is that the inside of the dam is eroding away, and it's likely that the intake, the hole that is, or the crack that is underneath the waterline, at the bottom of the dam is going to get bigger because that water is going to be sucked in at high pressure. It's going to be full of sediment, and it's going to be like a water blaster and a sand blaster all in one, and the exit hole, the same thing. And meanwhile, the inside of the dam is filling up with water, and it's liquefying the earth inside the dam and making that liquefied interior of the dam so much heavier. In short, that dam is going to collapse, and now there's no way out of it. If anybody listening to this broadcast is living downstream of the Three Gorges Dam, I don't care how you do it, you need to get out of there. I don't care if there's police or roadblocks on the road or whatever.
Hold that thought. So Guineith with us, David's with us. Guineith, you mentioned the Three Gorges Dam. It's in China. Those who are downstream, downhill, should be very, very concerned. What is the likelihood that that dam is going to fail and people are going to die? What's the likelihood, in your opinion?
I personally would be very, very surprised if it was still there in 2 weeks. I would be, okay. You know, I'm just waiting for it to collapse at any time now, actually, okay. Given that what has come forward about this, you know, this high pressure spray that is evident from the satellite photos. It's quite a considerable size of jet under the water. And, you know, you can't have that magnitude of leak, because when you get a leak in a dam, even a small leak, the pressure of the water going through that leak expands the hole constantly, okay? And especially when you've got going into and coming out of that gap, the water is not only under high pressure, but it also contains a lot of sand and grit and sediment, which is also abrasive. You know how abrasive a sandblaster is, Vincent. If you could imagine a sandblaster that also was a water blaster as well, and that had a nozzle that wasn't just like a 1 millimeter nozzle, but that was many feet across, you know, that and coming out at immense high pressure to where the exit jet is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet long, and it's literally visible from space. And it's being seen by Canadian satellites and all, you know, and Japanese satellites and all the rest of it. They're all monitoring it at the moment, and there's nothing that the Chinese can do to shut it down, because these are not Chinese satellites, and they can't stop people from seeing it. Yeah.
Class, a sandblaster will blast the paint right off a car. Okay, a sandblaster is used if you ever buy a used alternator, for example, for your car. You know, a rebuilt one, it looks shiny just like a new one. That's because they took the old one, they took the case, and they sandblasted it. They sandblasted all the dirt and grime, maybe some paint off it, and it looks brand new again. And if you ever looked at etched glass, they use a sandblaster to do that. And if you look at tombstones, that is marked with a sandblaster. That's how they do it. So what you're talking about is really powerful. Guineith, I mentioned Harry and Meghan, the housewrecker, the homebreaker. I mentioned that I believe that she is done more damage all by herself to the monarchy than any other individual in modern history. What are your thoughts about Harry, Meghan, and their $150 million Netflix deal, where they're expecting to be compensated $1 million per presentation, $1 million per speech? What are your thoughts about those two individuals who hardly know anything being paid such exorbitant compensation?
I think that they're going to get a really nasty reality shock when their show fails, because they are thinking that they're going to get the attention that they have received all through their life. But, you know, Harry's got to wake up that the only reason why anyone's even got the remotest amount of time a day for him is because he's the son of Princess Diana. You know? And Princess Diana was loved. So I think that she would be quite disappointed in Harry. And I think that he's really, really made the wrong decision there. Nobody's going to watch the show. It's going to be a flop, okay? Because, you know, you've got people. I've been getting Facebook messages of people in Melbourne asking me for help because they have no money, no motor vehicle, no food in the house, and they're in lockdown, and they're terrified, and they don't know what to do. And, you know, Harry and Meghan think that they're going to, you know, make hundreds of millions of dollars from a TV show showing off all their wealth, when there's people starving to death in Melbourne.
All over the world. All over the world are people starving. United States as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
and and it's going to get worse.
We've come to the end of the broadcast. David, any quick comments?
No, I'll let Guineith, and you have the last one. Thanks.
David, would you like to join me on Friday, hour number 2?
Sure.
Okay. Put down your calendar, please, and I'll call you. Guineith, it's been delightful broadcasting with you and David as well. Well, thank you very much for spending your time with us and teaching people what's really happening. We're not making this up, class. So have that meeting with your family.